You should go outside and see. It's getting so late. Why hasn't the wedding party arrived yet? My parents and relatives were in a visible state of distress. They paced back and forth near the edge of our small town, craning their necks to look down the dusty road, a mixture of anticipation and worry etched on their faces. We waited for hours. As the sun began to set, my father dispatched several groups of our neighbors to the next town over, asking them to inquire near the Harrison family's home. Eventually, the terrible news made its way back to us. The Harrisons had called off the wedding. My father was overcome with a quiet, simmering fury. His hand came down hard on the dining table, the sound echoing in the silent house. He said they had gone too far, that this was a calculated insult to our family's name. Without another word, he found the matchmaker who had arranged the union and led a small group of relatives to the Harrison home to demand some kind of explanation. When they arrived, however, the gates were locked and their calls went unanswered. My parents returned home that night looking utterly defeated, their bodies weary, and their spirits crushed. The very next morning, both of them fell ill from the stress and humiliation. As I was reborn into this exact moment, I had arrived just a little too late to prevent their initial pain. But seeing them lying in bed, weak and frail, but still worrying about me, I felt an overwhelming sense of joy. In my previous life, I had married into the Harrison family, bringing with me the substantial dowry my parents had so carefully put together. I was a good and beautiful wife to my in-laws. I treated my sister-in-law Clara with affection, and I handled all the family's social obligations with care. When Clara Harrison decided she wanted to study overseas in 2015, it was I who sold a small courtyard house that was in my name to scrape together the funds for her tuition. My husband, Leo Harrison, climbed the rungs of his career, supported by my family's money. Later, he caught a break and found immense success. And the Harrison family, once an unknown name from a rural town, was suddenly part of Riverbend's new elite. As their fortunes rose, everyone praised me as the woman who brought good fortune to their household. But Leo was never satisfied. He never truly accepted me. The latter half of our marriage deteriorated under the constant barrage of his anger and complaints. "Eleanor, I truly regret marrying you," he would shout. "You deliberately gave Ethan that money, so he could make EA get an abortion. You ruined her life." By then, he had already brought Isa Thorne back from another country. The two of them would appear at public functions as a pair, acting intimate and loving, with no regard for my dignity as his wife. My once kind mother-in-law, and what I thought was a considerate sister-in-law, would always try to plate me. "Eleanor, you have to be more understanding," they'd say. "Times have changed. What wealthy man doesn't have a few women on the side? The fact that my son still keeps you, the wife who was with him through the hard times, is already a great kindness." Even my own son eventually stood against me, confronting me directly. "Mom, can't you just be content? Isa can't have children. She isn't going to fight you for the inheritance. She just wants a title. What's the big deal? Go ask around. Which wealthy family doesn't have a few illegitimate children? With Aunt Isa around, Dad doesn't have the energy to mess around and have more kids with other women? What more could you possibly want? Do you have any idea how hard it is for me to manage everything between Grandpa, Grandma, and Aunt Clara?" I didn't know what I was still dissatisfied with. All I knew was that every time my aging parents saw a news report about Leo's latest scandal, they were heartbroken. My father, a retired soldier who believed men should bleed but never cry, would weep silently in the dead of night, hiding it from my mother. He passed away with his eyes wide open, unable to find peace. That one failed marriage had torn apart the people I loved most. All the glamour and wealth I appeared to have was nothing more than a beautiful robe crawling with lice. No one could see the pain and bitterness behind my polite smile. So when I was reborn and found myself back at this pivotal moment, while everyone else was filled with rage and shame over the groom who had run away, I alone was grateful. I was grateful that it wasn't too late. While my parents were busy organizing a group to go confront the Harrisons, I went by myself to the marriage registration office in town. There I retrieved the marriage certificate that had not yet been officially stamped. In my previous life, I had forgotten to bring the official stamp on our wedding day. A kind woman who worked at the office had smiled at me gently and said, "Just leave it here. When you get the certificate stamped, bring it back and I'll complete the process for you. That will save you a trip." I had a piece of milk candy in my pocket, and I handed it to her. In return, she gave me back the unstamped marriage certificate. "Thank you," I said, bowing deeply as tears streamed down my face. On the bus ride home, we passed by a secluded alley, and a familiar scene caught my eye. It was Leo holding Isla Thorne tightly in his arms, his face alight with joy. I say, "This time I won't let you go through it alone. I'll take responsibility as the father." She blushed, her face glowing with affection. But when Isla's eyes met mine by chance, a look of panic crossed her face. I turned my head away, feeling nothing. The Leo Harrison of my past was no longer my concern. He always believed that the baby Isella carried was his. Only she and I knew the truth. It wasn't. The child belonged to her university professor, a refined and elegant man who was already married. The two had fallen in love, and their affair had become intense. But the man ultimately chose his career over their relationship and left the country with his wife, disappearing without a word and leaving Isella completely abandoned. When Ida discovered she was pregnant, she was devastated and desperate. She turned her attention to her loyal admirer, Leo Harrison. She planned to get him drunk, hoping to trick him into sleeping with her and pass the baby off as his. But I had walked in on them and stopped her just in time. Iseorn fell to her knees before me, sobbing and begging for mercy. "Ella Laner, I'm begging you. Please lend me some money. I'll get rid of the baby. I'll use Leo's classmate's name to check in at the clinic. I swear no one will ever find out." I'm not sure what I was thinking in that moment. Perhaps it was a sense of sisterhood. Or maybe I simply pied her for falling in love with the wrong man. Whatever the reason, I kept her secret. When Leo sobered up, he assumed he had just had a one-night stand with his long-lost first love. When he later found out that Isa had an abortion and could no longer have children, he was only heartbroken for a few days before accepting it. At the time, he had just started at his new job and was relying on EA's professional connections. He and I began our own relationship in secret. Later, he came to resent me deeply for what he thought I had done, accusing me of using my position to pressure him. He held on to that grudge and hated me for it, which is why he went out of his way to humiliate me in public for years. In the end, there were no winners among the three of us. Now that we had all gone our separate ways, I suppose things had finally returned to how they were meant to be. After Leo abandoned the wedding, my father was consumed by guilt. There had originally been two potential suitors for me. He had favored Leo, saying he was a man destined for great things, that his potential was limitless. He was right about Leo's future success in my past life, but even so, I didn't want him anymore. I thought about it carefully. In this world, it's still expected that women get married. Even strong, independent women who remain single for decades are subjected to gossip and judgment, let alone in this era. Since I had to marry someone, I decided I would rather choose the safest, most dependable option. When I told my father I wanted to marry Julian Croft, he was completely taken aback. "Sweetheart, let's think this through properly. There's no need to tie yourself to just these two men. I can help you meet other people." But I shook my head firmly.
"Dad, it's him.
Just ask him if he's willing to marry me." Thinking back on my past life, I was fairly certain he would be. Back then, when Julian found out I was getting married, he had rushed over to see me drenched in sweat. But when he saw me standing there in my red wedding dress, he simply turned and left without a word. Afterward, I received a transfer of money every year along with all sorts of practical necessities, all sent from the same place, though the specific address was always removed. I checked. It was the garrison where Julian had once been stationed. 10 years later, the packages stopped coming. I assumed he had finally moved on and started a family of his own, and I was genuinely happy for him. It wasn't until decades later that I learned the truth. He had died in the line of duty. His name was engraved on a tombstone at the Martyrs Memorial Cemetery. Next to it, a small line of text read, "My eternal love, Eleanor." Some people cast me aside like broken glass, while others used every last breath of their short lives to love me. I looked up at the man sitting stiffly across from me. In my past life, this was the day he had turned and walked away in silence. In this life, for some reason, he had stood outside my house all day, watching me quietly. "Julian, it looks like today is your unlucky day. I want to get married, and you're still single, so I suppose it has to be you." He broke into a grin, and his sharp, serious features softened with a warmth I had never seen before. Not unlucky at all. I couldn't be happier. To escape the people and places that brought us nothing but bad memories, my parents and I moved directly into the courtyard house in Riverbend. It had been my mother's dowry, left untouched for years. In my past life, when Clara Harrison had insisted on studying abroad, Leo had strongly objected, his face dark with disapproval. My mother-in-law had cried under her covers, and the house was filled with constant arguments. Clara had cried and pleaded with me. "Ella Laner, can you help me? Just 300,000 is enough. I know you can figure something out." What could I do? Leo played both sides, pushing me to sell the house without ever explicitly saying so. Even in the nines, it wouldn't look good if word got out that a daughter-in-law's dowry was being used up by her in-laws. That perfectly preserved courtyard house was eventually sold for a little over 600,000. Clara used 300,000 for her studies, and Leo took the rest to expand his business contacts. Years later, when I tried to buy it back, the price had become astronomically high. Even if Leo had tried to repurchase it, he would have had to question if it was worth the cost. And to him, anything for me was never worth it. Now, that same courtyard house had been transferred into my name by my mother. It was decorated in bright red, filled with a festive, joyful atmosphere. Julian and I had received our marriage certificate, and in front of our families, we were formally declared husband and wife. Both sets of parents were in tears. What I didn't expect was that immediately after the wedding ceremony, Julian received an emergency assignment. He was full of regret, only able to stay for our wedding night before he had to leave. Before he left, he handed over all of his savings and belongings to me and gave me a long list of instructions, reminding me of every little thing. Watching his anxious eyes and furrowed brow, I couldn't help but smile softly. I stood on my toes and gently kissed him, then pulled back. "I'll wait for you to come home." Julian wrapped a strong arm around my waist, his voice low and steady. I know. I had resolved to give Julian all of my loyalty and trust in this new life. I would be a better version of myself, calmer and more at peace. What I hadn't anticipated was that this Julian was nothing like the quiet, reserved man I remembered from my past life. The few times I had seen him back then, he had barely spoken. Other than the occasional flicker of emotion in his deep, dark eyes, I had never sensed anything else from him. I had always imagined he needed a steady, graceful woman as his wife, and I truly believed I could play that role better than anyone. But could someone please explain what was happening with this passionate, bold, and incredibly clingy man? Ever since Julian returned from his mission, I had barely managed to get out of bed for a week. When things got too intense, I would kick him in frustration, only for him to catch my leg, place it over his shoulder, and continue with even more vigor. After we got married, my parents and my new in-laws moved in with us. My mother and mother-in-law got along wonderfully. They even bought the neighboring houses next to our courtyard. Every day, the four of them would play chess, knit, and cook together. They never interfered in our lives, only watched over us with quiet, loving support. Lately, there had been a very noticeable change in the food on our dinner table. Stir-fried eggs with chives, spicy pork kidney stir-fry, goji berry chicken soup. My face turned a little redder each day, and I found myself keeping my head bowed at the dinner table. But Julian, as thick-skinned as ever, was still in the mood to critique the food. "Mom, the soup is a bit salty today. Dad, that fish you caught has a bit of a muddy taste. Next time, you should keep it in clean water for a couple of days before cooking." No matter what he said, both sets of parents just nodded and happily agreed. Julian, smug and cheeky, would lean over and whisper to me, "Thanks to you, I can ask for anything." If I wanted the rabbit from the moon, I bet Dad would figure out a way to catch it for me. They had long resigned themselves to the idea that Julian would stay single for life. I shyly pinched his waist, but he didn't even flinch. Instead, he leaned his face closer. "Sweetheart, how about a few more kisses right here?" he teased. "Every time I go on a mission, I have to rely on these memories to get through it." While I waited peacefully at home, I received his care packages and letters at the same time every month. There were dried wildflowers from the mountains, seashells from the beach, stunning scenic photographs, and letters overflowing with love. "Eleanor, the flowers blooming on the mountain aren't as beautiful as you." "Eleanor," I whispered "I love you" into a conch shell. "Can you hear my voice?" "Eleanor, even the clouds in the sky look like your silhouette." "I miss you so much, Eleanor." "I love you." Julian had arranged every part of my life so carefully and securely that I no longer needed to run around managing the household like I did in my previous life. I didn't have to worry about the groceries for 5 people, Clara's grades, or what herbal medicine my mother-in-law needed to drink each day. I didn't have to get up early to serve anyone or stay up late cleaning up after them. Just like my maternal grandmother, I had a pair of skillful hands. No matter how intricate a pattern or technique, I could understand it with a glance and reproduce it perfectly. In my past life, Leo's boss, a cheerful and blunt older woman, loved the trendy clothes she saw in magazines from Hong Kong and Taiwan. Leo had asked me to help him. I had just finished my postpartum confinement when I had to drag my exhausted body to her house to make exact copies of the style she liked. Every year, I made tailored outfits based on that woman's tastes, never once disappointing her. Over the decades that followed, whenever Leo faced any difficulties, that same senior woman would step in and solve them, often before I even had a chance to ask. She protected his business empire, clearing every obstacle from his path. Later, after she retired, Leo never visited her again, not even a single phone call. When I brought her a newly made coat, that legendary woman, now elderly, was lying in a rocking chair outside. She looked at me, smiled, and sighed. "Eleanor, you're so honest and sincere. What are you going to do in the future?" Thinking about all the good Julian had done for me, I decided I needed to return the favor, at least a little. I found out that Julian's commanding officer's mother, a graceful old lady, had a special interest in the history of traditional regional dresses. I seized one of the rare opportunities we had to meet and worked tirelessly, staying up all night to handcraft a few pieces for her. When I pulled out the garments to show them to Julian, his eyes turned red with emotion. His lips pressed together tightly as he tried to hold it in. He said, "Sweetheart, I'll earn my own future. I married you to give you a happy life. Believe me, I can do this. You just focus on what you want to do. If making clothes is your passion or your career, I'll support you. Just don't do it for me. That should never be a burden for you." Looking at his warm, vibrant face now and remembering the solemn, grieving photo on his tombstone in my past life, I couldn't find the words. My heart was overflowing with love. But all I could do when I opened my mouth was gag and heave. I was pregnant. The news hit Julian and both of our families like a tidal wave. Shocking and dizzying, but full of immense joy. My in-laws went to our ancestral home in the countryside that very night to kneel before our ancestors and give thanks. "Thank you for blessing this unworthy grandson. Julian, he's finally done something useful." Before heading back to his base, Julian, always shameless, bragged loudly. "Old man, you're the one who should be kneeling. Without my wife, our family line would have ended with
You."
Before he could finish, my mother-in-law smacked him out the door with a feather duster. Julian returned to his post reluctantly. Far from creating any distance, my in-laws threw themselves into taking care of me. When they heard that free-range eggs from the countryside were more nutritious than store-bought ones, they even rode with my mother all the way back to the village to buy some. That evening, before they even stepped through the door, I could hear my dad's booming voice from outside. "That damn bastard. I'll kill him." First, he ran away from the wedding and humiliated us. And now he has the nerve to ruin Eleanor's reputation. 2. He's looking for death. Honey, get out of the way. While calming down my furious father, my mother explained the whole story to me. They had run into Leo's mother while passing through his village. Back when the Harrisons had abandoned us and fled town, they had done everything they could to disgrace us. And now that woman had the audacity to ask why I hadn't brought medicine for Leo lately. She said his medication had run out. Good thing you didn't marry him. My mom fumed. That whole family is rotten. His little sister is in college now, right? She even had the nerve to ask why you didn't transfer her money last month. A family of ungrateful snakes. My mom sighed after a sip of water. Your mother-in-law overheard everything. She was holding a basket of eggs and didn't say anything, but I'm worried they might feel awkward about it. We never hid what happened before, but hearing that their daughter-in-law was left at the altar can't sit well with them. If your mother-in-law speaks to you harshly in the next few days, please just bear with it. All right. Your dad. And I can tell Julian is a good man. This will pass. Dad got even angrier. Why should she have to endure anything? My daughter didn't do anything wrong. Worst case scenario, she divorces him. I'll take care of her and the baby myself. After that, neither of them said another word. The atmosphere turned heavy. I felt uneasy. Would my mother-in-law tell Julian what she had heard? If she did, would he think I married him because I had no other choice? Would he be angry?
Probably.
With those worries weighing me down, I tossed and turned all night. When I finally woke the next morning, I noticed my mother-in-law hadn't made breakfast or sent over any food. I wasn't sure if I felt disappointed or relieved.
It was hard to say.
What struck me as odd was that my parents weren't home either. Before I could collect my thoughts from all the what-ifs swirling in my head, I heard a loud commotion outside the door. This time, we're letting them off easy, but if they start running their mouths again, I'll break that boy's damn legs. Uncle, we're coming with you. Julian isn't home right now. He left Ella Laner in our care. If we can't even handle this, what kind of family are we? Ella Laner is such a good person. And that which had the nerve to spread rumors about her. If she doesn't die from anger, it's a miracle. Next time I see that gossiping daughter of theirs, I'm going to rip her mouth wide open. Oh no, I forgot to make Eleanor's meal. What if she goes hungry? It's all your fault. I told you we should have come right back after buying those eggs. Where's the hen and the eggs I bought?
Who's holding them?
Right here, Auntie. The eggs are perfectly fine. Not a single one broken. I rushed to hug my mother-in-law tightly. She later explained that she hadn't taken anything that woman said to heart. The reason she didn't talk back was because she didn't want to drop the eggs in her basket. It's hard for hens to lay eggs in the winter, and she had gone door to door just to gather enough to nourish me. The moment she brought the eggs home, she told my father-in-law and our relatives, and they all gathered to confront the Harrisons and reclaim our family's dignity. They tore through the Harrison household, smashed furniture, shattered doors, and reported the matter to both the local police and the village chief. Leo's mother finally admitted that the things she'd said that Ella Laner had already slept with her son were all lies made up on the spot. My mother-in-law, a retired school teacher, completely abandoned her usual elegance. She grabbed Leo's mother by the collar and slapped her across the face again and again, shouting with each hit, "Eleanor is such a good child. Your son didn't know how to treasure her. If I ever hear you slandering her name again, I'll tear your mouth apart myself." She shoved a few $100 bills into my hand. "This is your reputation compensation from that old hag. And this," she said, handing me a signed apology letter, "is her guarantee." She was crying her eyes out when the police showed up, saying she must have been possessed. "Don't be afraid, Eleanor," she said. "Julian may not be home, but your dad and I will protect you." When my parents heard the news, they rushed over, shocked and filled with regret. They scolded my in-laws, asking why they hadn't taken them along. But my mother-in-law waved them off proudly.
You.
Before he could finish, my mother-in-law smacked him out the door with a feather duster. Julian returned to his post reluctantly. Far from creating any distance, my in-laws threw themselves into taking care of me. When they heard that free-range eggs from the countryside were more nutritious than store-bought ones, they even rode with my mother all the way back to the village to buy some. That evening, before they even stepped through the door, I could hear my dad's booming voice from outside. That damn bastard. I'll kill him. First, he ran away from the wedding and humiliated us. And now he has the nerve to ruin Eleanor's reputation. 2. He's looking for death. Honey, get out of the way. While calming down my furious father, my mother explained the whole story to me. They had run into Leo's mother while passing through his village. Back when the Harrisons had abandoned us and fled town, they had done everything they could to disgrace us. And now that woman had the audacity to ask why I hadn't brought medicine for Leo lately. She said his medication had run out. Good thing you didn't marry him. My mom fumed. That whole family is rotten. His little sister is in college now, right? She even had the nerve to ask why you didn't transfer her money last month. A family of ungrateful snakes. My mom sighed after a sip of water. Your mother-in-law overheard everything. She was holding a basket of eggs and didn't say anything, but I'm worried they might feel awkward about it. We never hid what happened before, but hearing that their daughter-in-law was left at the altar can't sit well with them. If your mother-in-law speaks to you harshly in the next few days, please just bear with it. All right. Your dad. And I can tell Julian is a good man. This will pass. Dad got even angrier. Why should she have to endure anything? My daughter didn't do anything wrong. Worst case scenario, she divorces him. I'll take care of her and the baby myself. After that, neither of them said another word. The atmosphere turned heavy. I felt uneasy. Would my mother-in-law tell Julian what she had heard? If she did, would he think I married him because I had no other choice? Would he be angry?
Probably.
With those worries weighing me down, I tossed and turned all night. When I finally woke the next morning, I noticed my mother-in-law hadn't made breakfast or sent over any food. I wasn't sure if I felt disappointed or relieved.
It was hard to say.
What struck me as odd was that my parents weren't home either. Before I could collect my thoughts from all the what-ifs swirling in my head, I heard a loud commotion outside the door. This time, we're letting them off easy, but if they start running their mouths again, I'll break that boy's damn legs. Uncle, we're coming with you. Julian isn't home right now. He left Ella in our care. If we can't even handle this, what kind of family are we? Ella is such a good person. And that which had the nerve to spread rumors about her. If she doesn't die from anger, it's a miracle. Next time I see that gossiping daughter of theirs, I'm going to rip her mouth wide open. Oh no, I forgot to make Eleanor's meal. What if she goes hungry? It's all your fault. I told you we should have come right back after buying those eggs. Where's the hen and the eggs I bought?
Who's holding them?
Right here, Auntie. The eggs are perfectly fine. Not a single one broken. I rushed to hug my mother-in-law tightly. She later explained that she hadn't taken anything that woman said to heart. The reason she didn't talk back was because she didn't want to drop the eggs in her basket. It's hard for hens to lay eggs in the winter, and she had gone door to door just to gather enough to nourish me. The moment she brought the eggs home, she told my father-in-law and our relatives, and they all gathered to confront the Harrisons and reclaim our family's dignity. They tore through the Harrison household, smashed furniture, shattered doors, and reported the matter to both the local police and the village chief. Leo's mother finally admitted that the things she'd said that Ella had already slept with her son were all lies made up on the spot. My mother-in-law, a retired school teacher, completely abandoned her usual elegance. She grabbed Leo's mother by the collar and slapped her across the face again and again, shouting with each hit, "Eleanor is such a good child. Your son didn't know how to treasure her. If I ever hear you slandering her name again, I'll tear your mouth apart myself." She shoved a few $100 bills into my hand. "This is your reputation compensation from that old hag. And this," she said, handing me a signed apology letter, "is her guarantee." She was crying her eyes out when the police showed up, saying she must have been possessed. "Don't be afraid, Eleanor," she said. "Julian may not be home, but your dad and I will protect you." When my parents heard the news, they rushed over, shocked and filled with regret. They scolded my in-laws, asking why they hadn't taken them along. But my mother-in-law waved them off proudly. "This is our child. We'll handle our own business." The next time I saw Leo Harrison and Isla Thorne was 5 years later on the streets of Crestmont City. It was clear Leo had taken full advantage of his second chance at life. He was thriving. The two of them wore the latest fashions and drove a sleek car. When they saw me waiting for the bus by the curb, I could practically feel the superiority radiating from them. Leo's face tightened as he sneered. "Elelainer, I just sent out a package 3 days ago, and now you're already here. You've been following me, haven't you?" Without giving me a chance to reply, he tossed a business card my way. "Enough. I'm not in the mood. Come to this address tonight. I have something for you to do." Isa's eyes flickered. She bit her lip and shot me a bitter glare. Before I could say anything, they got into their car and drove off. A few minutes later, Julian's younger brother arrived, braking hard. "Sis, there was an urgent issue at the company." "Sorry, am I late?" I waved him off with a smile. "I just got here, too." "Perfect timing. Let's go." Right before getting into the car, I casually tossed Leo's business card into a nearby trash can. 4 years ago, I gave birth to my daughter, Sophie. Julian received orders to transfer to Crestmont, thousands of miles away. My parents and in-laws couldn't bear to part with their granddaughter. Nor did they want to see Julian and me living apart. Everyone was torn, but I wasn't worried. While raising Sophie, I enrolled in college and started a degree in medicine. This year, Sophie started preschool and made her own little group of friends. She had been spoiled, absolutely rotten, by all 4 grandparents and had grown so used to the Riverbend climate that she refused to leave with me. After asking for her opinion, Julian and I decided to let her stay with our parents. Meanwhile, I brought my acceptance letter to a program in Cresman and moved there to reunite with him. Maybe what I went through in my past life had affected me more deeply than I realized. Even though I still loved crafting with my hands, I couldn't bring myself to pick up a pair of scissors or a sewing needle. Just the thought of it made me feel tense. Gradually, I started to develop a real interest in medicine. Julian encouraged me with all his heart. He said, "Let's stick to your gift. If you can't hold a sewing needle, hold a scalpel instead. Whatever you want to do, I'll support you." Once I received my degree, I applied to transfer with the military to Crestmont and started working at the base hospital. Today was my first official day reporting for duty, and I never expected to run into someone I would rather never see again. In a city this big, what were the chances? But I didn't take Leo Harrison's words to heart. Neither he nor Isa Thorne had the power to stir any emotion in me now. So Julian and I balanced our work and life perfectly, never once caring about the chaos happening on Leo's end. Leo kept checking his watch, pacing back and forth anxiously. It was almost 8 a.m. "Isn't Eleanor here yet?" he muttered to himself. "Director Gao is arriving in a few days. I've got to make a good impression." He remembered clearly how hard things had been when he first worked under Director Gao in his past life. 3 years later, when Eleanor's tailoring skills had happened to match Gao's personal taste, things had finally turned around. This time, Leo had brought Elelainer in early, much earlier than in their last life, hoping to win favor through her. If everything went as planned, he'd gain a powerful connection ahead of schedule. Thinking about Elelainer made Leo grin foolishly. She was just as loyal and devoted as she had been before. That worked perfectly for him. He'd always planned to let her suffer a little first, let her taste some hardship and shame, then he'd marry her anyway. After all, she had treated him with complete devotion in their past life. His mom and little sister had adored her. She even gave him a son who was outstanding and had the exact same personality as him. This time, Isa had also given birth to a son, but unfortunately, the child looked nothing like him. The thought made Leo miss his past life even more. He wasn't sure if he missed his son or the high status he used to enjoy. Getting a second chance to make up for past regrets felt amazing, but everything had to start from scratch. Right now, he was just a low-level official with a bit of cash. He was still miles away from the status he'd once had. But it was fine. Eleanor was about to arrive. She would help him win over Director Gao. Once he sold his apartment in Riverbend, he'd have the capital to start fresh. With money and experience, He was confident he'd be back on top in less than 10 years. As for the rumors from his mom and sister that Ella Laner had already married someone else, he didn't believe them for a second. Obviously, the Vance family had staged it to save face after he ran out on the wedding. Who could blame them? One thing he was sure of, the Eleanor from his past life was the kind of woman who, once she gave her heart to someone, would love them with unwavering loyalty. That was why, even after being reborn, Leo would rather keep Ida as a mistress and still marry Eleanor. There was simply no better wife than Ella Laner. Across from me, Isa smiled sweetly and offered, "Miss Vance, try this coffee. It's made from Brazilian beans, freshly ground by hand. It's really smooth." I was exhausted by the whole thing. I had no idea what these two were trying to pull. I had just gone out to buy a few household items, and somehow Isa had intercepted me. What were the odds? She took a sip of coffee, hesitated, then looked at me with a forced gentleness. "Eleanor, I've been waiting for you here for days. When you didn't come to the house last time, I figured maybe you lost the business card, so I came back here to wait and I actually ran into you." She smiled as if nothing had happened. "Leo and I have a child now. He's 4 years old. When you have time, come over and visit, okay? What happened in the past was our fault, but love itself isn't wrong. We really hope you can give us your blessing." So that's what this was. Isla trying to blur the lines around the timing and make me believe she'd gotten pregnant by Leo after marrying him. She didn't know that just yesterday Leo had come to me all smug and self-righteous, saying I should still marry into the Harrison family and not give Isla a hard time. He told me Isla cares so much about your happiness that she was willing to abort the child for your sake. I can't let her suffer. So, Ella Laner, you'll be the main wife and Isa will be the secondary one. Her child will call you Mom, too. That's normal around here. Any successful man has multiple women. I just hope you two can get along. I had always known those two were delusional, but I never expected them to be this far gone. Right then, their son, who had been quietly eating cake next to us, suddenly began breathing heavily and collapsed. My instincts as a doctor kicked in instantly, and I rushed to help. The child was clearly suffering from an allergic reaction. His throat swelling rapidly, his epiglottis and airway were closing. He needed to get to the hospital immediately. Panicked and focused, I didn't hesitate. Just moments ago, Isa had been sitting there composed and elegant. Now she collapsed into Leo's arms like a tearful damsel, delicate and panicked. "Leo, save our son. I just wanted to let him meet Miss Vance a little early. How was I supposed to know Eleanor would intentionally give him mangoes? I clearly told her over and over that Coco is allergic to mangoes." Leo's expression turned furious. The way he glared at me, I could practically see him imagining me torn to pieces. He charged at me without a word, his hand raised to slap me. But before his hand could reach me, I caught his wrist and pressed hard on a pressure point. His face turned a ghostly pale from the pain, and sweat poured from his forehead. "You think this is a joke? You have no idea what med students go through during training. Our professors expected us to be strong enough to carry a bull on our backs. Eleanor Vance, you hurt a child. You're despicable." Leo spat. "How did I not see you were this vicious before? You need to be taught a lesson." "Shut up." I finally snapped. "Get that child to a hospital now." While the doctors were still performing emergency treatment, I hadn't even had time to step out before Isla grabbed my sleeve, weeping and demanding an explanation. Not long after, Leo's mother and sister barged in. "Oh, my sweet little grandson," his grandma cried. "This is killing me." His sister, Clara Harrison, glared at me, seething with hatred. Leo held Isla gently in his arms, whispering softly to comfort her. Isa looked up at me through tear-filled lashes, then buried herself deeper into his embrace. Leo's face turned cold. "Apologize to Eleanor right now," he ordered. I had no patience for this circus. I stood up to leave, but Leo grabbed my arm. As we struggled, a puzzled voice came from behind me. "Dr. Vance, what are you doing here? The department's waiting for you. We have a meeting." I turned around to see several interns, including a young one named Yang, walking up. I quickly waved them over. Please help separate these lunatics from the Harrison family, I said calmly, using the chance to free myself and walk out. Behind me, Leo's confused voice echoed. Wait, did you just call her Dr. Vance? The interns looked proud. Yeah, Dr. Vance was just transferred to our hospital, top graduate from Riverbend Medical. She was Professor Chang's favorite student. That evening, just after my shift, I walked out of the hospital and saw Leo waiting by the entrance. Eleanor Vance, you've been reborn, too, haven't you? I wasn't surprised by how sure Leo sounded. In our past life, while hiking with a mentor named Dr. Gao, I had accidentally scraped my ankle on a sharp rock. A young female doctor had treated the wound, and the graceful precision of her hands while stitching had mesmerized me. For months afterward, I practiced those same motions at home. It turns out that beyond tailoring, a simple needle could open up a whole new world for me. Leo had always scoffed at my passion. If you can become a doctor, pigs can climb trees. I looked at him with cold disdain. Well, I did become a doctor. Tell me, Mr. Harrison, are the pigs in your house climbing trees now? His face flushed. Then, as always, he defaulted to blame. You've clearly been reborn for a while. Why didn't you come find me? He demanded. You knew I was about to meet Dr. Gao. You knew she only liked your clothing designs. You wanted to watch me struggle, didn't you? You wanted me to beg. Don't lie. I'm doing all of this for our future. Don't you want to go back to the kind of elite life we had before? Quit your job at the hospital, start sewing again, and help me rebuild everything. You're a doctor now. You should know how to take care of the elderly. You can look after my mom, too. I had it. That self-righteous expression of his disgusted me. In our past life, I already knew he was the type to take advantage of others, but I hadn't realized just how delusional and entitled he really was. As my colleagues began to exit the hospital in small groups, several of them gave curious glances toward us at the gate. Leo, ever smug, tried to reach for my hand with confidence. I slapped his hand away coldly. Take one more step, and I'll call security. This is a military hospital. The guards here, one of them could take down 3 of you. And stop flattering yourself. I'm already married. Leo froze. That's impossible, he said blankly. It doesn't count. You couldn't have married anyone but me.
You married me.
That marriage is mine. I have the right. I'm her legally recognized spouse under national marriage law. Who do you think you are to question that? I turned around, surprised, and there was Julian, striding toward me in long, confident steps. He grabbed my hand and laced our fingers together, completely ignoring the fact that we were surrounded by people. I didn't care either. I was just happy. I thought you said you weren't coming back until tomorrow, I said, smiling. He lowered his head, his voice soft. I missed you. I rushed back overnight. Behind us, Leo Harrison was still chasing after me like a madman. But Julian's security detail intercepted him and held him back at a distance. I could still hear Leo screaming at the top of his lungs. Eleanor Vance, you can only marry me. You belong to me. Julian rubbed my fingers gently and sneered. What a delusion. He really thought a short break would make this feel like a honeymoon. Every time that man returned from a mission, I felt like I was risking my medical degree by being in bed with him for so long. If I die from exhaustion, I once told him, it'll be the most embarrassing cause of death for a med student. Julian would always pull the blanket over me and say in that lazy drawl, Sweetheart, you're overthinking it. Your old professor back in Riverbend said you were the toughest student he ever trained. You're built like a tank. 2 months later, I volunteered to transfer to a satellite division for advanced teaching. By the time I returned to Crestmont, it was already deep autumn. My colleagues told me that while I had been away, a strange man had been standing outside the hospital every day, rain or shine, watching the entrance and exit of every shift. Intern Young described it with theatrical flair. At first, security thought he was some kind of stalker, but he just stood there like an idiot, like he was waiting for someone. Eventually, they stopped bothering him. Dr. Vance, you should have seen it. He added, the guy is not battle-looking, but he cries like a baby out of nowhere. Creepy, right? After Yang finished gossiping the next day, I ran into Leo Harrison waiting for me again at the hospital gate. Seeing the tense looks from the guards, I raised a hand to calm them. "Eleanor," he said quickly, afraid I'd have him thrown out. "I was wrong. I was too arrogant.
I realize it now. Please come back to me."
He was crying as he begged. "We were married in our past life for so long. We even had a son together.
You should marry me."
We even picked up the marriage certificate. I don't care that you left him. I'll take you back.
I'll marry you.
I looked at him calm, but completely done with his nonsense. "Leo, when you ran from our wedding, I was relieved. When I came back to this life, my biggest fear was that I had already married you. The moment you bailed, I went straight to the city and withdrew our marriage application." Leo froze, utterly stunned. I continued, "I've been married to my husband for years. We have a wonderful daughter. She's sweet and clever. She doesn't have to play mediator between her dad and her grandma. She's loved completely by our whole family." Thinking back on our past life, Leo tried to smile, but it twisted awkwardly on his face. "Eleanor," he said, his eyes red. "I admit I was wrong. I only wanted to cool things down for a few years. I never meant to lose you. I wrote you a letter every year, but I just found out ISA was secretly taking them. See, it wasn't my fault. Please, just give me another chance. Think about our son. He was just like me, so smart. Please, Eleanor, I was wrong." His begging disgusted me. But I thought of my promise to Julian. If I didn't keep my cool, Julian had once told me he'd rather take the disciplinary punishment and personally eliminate this clingy pest. So instead, I calmly laid everything out. "Leo, the truth is, you just can't let go of what I bring to the table. I could manage your home and build your professional network. You only realized your perfect dream girl wasn't so perfect after all, and that no one made a better wife than Eleanor Vance. And that son you keep mentioning, the one who looked exactly like you. I'm glad I don't feel anything for him now. He was just like you. Selfish, cold, always demanding the world bend for him. Whether you admit your mistakes or not makes no difference to me. In our past life, I fulfilled every duty as a wife, a mother, and a daughter-in-law. Marrying into the Harrison family was the most revolting mistake of my life. You have no idea how many days and nights I spent drowning in regret. By the end, even seeing your face made me sick. And that includes right now." It seemed like Leo couldn't take anymore. His face twisted in disbelief as he collapsed to the ground, mumbling to himself, How could this happen?" I turned away from him in disgust, not sparing him even one more glance. "Leo Harrison, don't ever appear in my life again. You wouldn't want to know how my husband handles his enemies." After that day, Leo and his entire family disappeared completely from my world. Julian, jealous as ever, asked, "So what? You actually felt bad about me roughing him up?" I rolled my eyes. "Idiot. He's not even worth one strand of your hair. Sacrificing your future over someone like him would be beyond foolish." Easily placated, he turned soft and smug like a lion being scratched in just the right spot. Much later, I still made a point to befriend Director Gao, not to offer her handmade clothes this time. Of course, in our past life, she suffered from severe asthma and almost died during a business trip. I gently reminded her about a few medical precautions, and she was deeply touched, grateful beyond words. During one of our casual chats, she shared a story that made me smile. A few years back, she'd had a subordinate who was obsessed with giving her flashy, high-fashion outfits, no matter the occasion. They were loud, overly trendy, and completely missed her taste. She grew so annoyed that she finally transferred him far away from the central departments, just to get some peace. Later, she heard that the same subordinate tried his hand at business. Since Crestmont was one of the first cities to open up during the reforms, that kind of ambition wasn't unusual. But he had used loan sharks to fund his investments, and every project he backed flopped. No one trusted him, and eventually he lost everything. Then his mistress ran off, leaving behind a letter. She took their son and disappeared. In the letter she confessed that the boy wasn't his. He was the result of a youthful romance with her first love. Now that the biological father had returned, she realized that he was the one she had always truly loved. She thanked the man for his kindness, for accepting her so generously in the past. She hoped he'd understand why she had taken the remaining money when she left. After all, she still had a child to raise. The boy had once called him Dad after all. His elderly mother, who had doted on the grandson for years, suffered a stroke upon learning the truth and passed away shortly after. The man, shattered, sat by the surging riverside, clutching those letters. No one ever saw him again. I listened and then forgot about it. The same way you forget a story you overheard on a bus. These past few years, Julian missed our daughter terribly. Every winter and summer break, he tried to coax her into staying a few extra days in Crestmont. Our parents weren't thrilled about the constant back and forth competition for affection. At one point, I quietly suggested that maybe we should have another child. Julian pulled me into a hug and smiled. We made a deal, remember? Just one child. Boy or girl, it doesn't matter. One is enough. They'll have all of our love. He kissed the top of my head. Eleanor, besides you, I can only love one more person. Any more than that, and I wouldn't know how to split my heart. And so, we grew old together. He defended the nation, and I saved lives. When Julian passed away at the age of 82, surrounded by children and grandchildren, he was lying peacefully in my arms. As I was packing away his belongings, I found our wedding photo tucked into one of his cherished books. We looked so young then, leaning into each other, sweet, a little shy, and completely in love. On the back of the photo, in bold, deeply pressed ink, were the words, "Eleanor, my eternal love."